I'm afraid of you." The words barely escaped Lena's lips as she stood trembling in the doorway, rainwater streaming down her face, her eyes locked on the stranger who had just opened the door. The man's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. "That's honest," he said quietly. "Most women would lie about that." Lena's hand shook on the doorframe. Behind her, somewhere in the darkness, Holloway's men were closing in. In front of her stood a man she didn't know, in a cabin miles from anywhere. Her mother's voice echoed, "Never trust strangers." But the storm was drowning her options. "Please," she whispered, "I have nowhere else to go." Before we continue with Lena's story, if you're enjoying this drama, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And I'd love to know, comment below with the city you're watching from so I can see how far our stories have traveled. Now, let's see what happens next. The rain had started 3 hours ago, turning the Nebraska roads into rivers of mud. Lena had counted every minute since she'd stolen the horse from the neighboring ranch, her heart hammering against her ribs with each stride. The animal beneath her was laboring now, foam gathering at its mouth, and guilt twisted in her stomach. She'd never stolen anything in her life. But then again, she'd never run for her life before either. "Keep moving," she whispered to the horse, her voice cracking. "Just a little further." The truth was, she had no idea where further was. When she'd climbed out her bedroom window 4 hours ago, her only plan had been to get away from Ben Holloway's estate before sunrise. Before the ceremony that would chain her to a man she'd never met, a business arrangement disguised as a marriage. Holloway had made it very clear. She would marry his associate from Chicago, or she would find herself with nothing. No inheritance from her mother, no future, no choice. "Your mother would have wanted this," Holloway had said 2 nights ago, his fingers drumming on the mahogany desk in his study. She understood the importance of strategic alliances. "My mother would have wanted me to be happy," Lena had replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Holloway's smile had been cold. "Happiness is a luxury, Lena. Security is what matters. And you'll have plenty of security as Mrs. Frederick Marsh." The memory made her stomach turn. Frederick Marsh was 43 years old, twice widowed, with a reputation that made even Holloway's business partners uncomfortable. But he had money, and he had connections, and apparently that was all that mattered. The horse stumbled, and Lena jerked forward, nearly losing her seat. "I'm sorry," she gasped, patting its neck with trembling hands. "I'm so sorry." Thunder cracked overhead, and the rain intensified. Lena could barely see 10 feet ahead. Her dress clung to her skin, heavy and cold, and her fingers had gone numb on the reins. She'd grabbed her mother's jewelry box before climbing out the window, the only thing of value she had left, and it pressed against her ribs through the cloth bag tied to her waist. Then, through the curtain of rain, she saw it, a dark shape in the distance. A building. A cabin. Lena's first instinct was to keep riding. Her mother's warnings rang in her ears. "Never trust strangers, Lena, especially not out here. A woman alone is vulnerable in ways you can't imagine." But the horse was failing. Her own strength was failing. And somewhere behind her, Holloway would have discovered her absence by now. He would have sent men who knew these roads better than she did, men who wouldn't stop until they found her. She guided the horse toward the cabin. Up close, it was small but well-maintained. Smoke rose from the chimney, barely visible in the storm. A lantern glowed in one window. Someone was home. Lena dismounted, her legs nearly buckling beneath her. She led the horse to a small stable beside the cabin. At least, whoever lived here would care for animals. And then, her whole body shaking, approached the front door. She raised her hand to knock, then froze. What if this was worse? What if the person inside was like Holloway, or like Marsh? What if she'd run from one prison straight into another? But the cold was seeping into her bones, and her teeth were chattering so hard she couldn't think straight. She knocked. Footsteps. Heavy. Male. The door opened. The man who stood there was tall, broad-shouldered, with a beard that obscured most of his face. But his eyes, gray and sharp, took her in with one swift glance. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just looked at her, soaked, shivering, clearly terrified. "I'm afraid of you," Lena whispered, because it was the truth, and she was too exhausted to lie. The man's expression shifted slightly. Not anger, something else. "That's honest," he said. His voice was low, rough. "Most women would lie about that." Lena's hand trembled on the doorframe. "Please, I have nowhere else to go." He stepped back, opening the door wider. "You're running from something." It wasn't a question. "Yes," Lena said. "Someone?" "Yes." He nodded once. "Get inside before you freeze to death." Lena hesitated. Every instinct her mother had instilled in her screamed danger. But the alternative was the storm, and Holloway's men, and a future that terrified her more than this stranger's unknown intentions. She stepped inside. The cabin was warm, blessedly warm. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, and the room smelled of wood smoke and coffee. It was sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a small kitchen area, a bed in the corner. But clean. The man closed the door behind her and moved to the fireplace. "There's blankets on the bed. Get out of those wet clothes before you catch pneumonia." Lena stood frozen. He glanced back at her, then understanding crossed his face. "I'll turn around, and I'll stay turned around until you tell me otherwise." He did exactly that, facing the fire, his hands clasped behind his back. Lena's fingers fumbled with the buttons of her dress. It took her 3 tries to get the first one undone. Her hands were shaking too badly. But eventually she managed to peel off the soaked fabric and wrap herself in the rough wool blanket from the bed. I'm covered," she said. The man turned around. His eyes didn't linger on her, didn't assess her the way Marsh's had during their one meeting. He simply nodded and moved to the stove. "I'll make coffee. You'll need something hot." "Thank you," Lena whispered. "What's your name?" "Lena. Lena Gray." He poured coffee into a tin cup and brought it to her. "Jonah Miller." Lena took the cup, her hands wrapped around it for warmth. "I put my horse in your stable." "I'm sorry, I should have asked." "The horse is fine," Jonah said. "I already heard him. I'll check on him after you're settled." Lena sipped the coffee. It was strong and bitter, and exactly what she needed. "I can pay you. Not much, but—" "I don't want your money." The words hung in the air. Lena's grip tightened on the cup. "Then what do you want?" Jonah's gray eyes met hers, steady and calm. "Nothing. You needed shelter. I have shelter. That's the end of it." "Nobody helps someone for nothing." "I just did." Lena didn't know what to say to that. In her world, Holloway's world, every action had a price. Every kindness came with strings attached. Jonah moved back to the fire. "You're running from family?" "My father's business partner. Lena's voice caught. "He controls everything now. My mother died 2 years ago, and she left everything to him in trust until I marry." "And he's picked who you're going to marry?" It wasn't a question, but Lena answered anyway. Yes, a man I don't know. A man I don't want. So you ran? So I ran, Lena confirmed. He'll send men after me. They might already be looking. Jonah was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. This cabin is off the main road. Hard to find if you don't know it's here. You're safe for tonight. Just tonight? We'll figure out tomorrow when tomorrow comes. Lena took another sip of coffee, studying him. Jonah Miller. A stranger who'd taken her in without asking questions, without demanding explanations, without looking at her like she was property. It didn't make sense. Why are you helping me? Jonah didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. Because somebody should have helped my sister when she needed it. Nobody did. The words landed like stones. What happened to her? Lena asked softly. She married the man our father picked. Died 3 years later. Couldn't survive what that marriage did to her. Jonah's jaw tightened. So when a woman shows up at my door, running from the same kind of future, I don't ask questions. I help. Lena's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just stay alive. Thunder rolled overhead, and the cabin shook slightly. Lena pulled the blanket tighter around herself. What do you do? Out here, I mean. Route rider for the Butterfield line. I check the stations between here and the next settlement. Make sure the mail gets through. Help travelers who get stranded. He gestured toward the window. Not much call for it in weather like this, so I'm here. Lucky for me, Lena murmured. Maybe. Time will tell. A comfortable silence fell between them. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, Lena felt her heartbeat slowly returning to normal. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt like she could breathe. You should sleep, Jonah said. You look exhausted. Where will you sleep? He nodded toward the chair by the fire. I've slept in worse places. I can't take your bed. You can, and you will. I'm not arguing about this, Miss Gray. Despite everything, Lena almost smiled. Just Lena, please. Lena, then. Jonah moved to the small kitchen area and began checking the coffee pot. I'll be right here if you need anything. And I'm a light sleeper, so if anyone comes... What will you do? Jonah's eyes met hers, and there was something hard in them now. Something that made her believe every word he said. I'll make sure they don't get to you. That's a promise. Lena believed him. She settled onto the bed, still wrapped in the blanket, and watched as Jonah lowered himself into the chair by the fire. He didn't look at her, didn't try to make conversation. He simply sat there, solid and present, a barrier between her and whatever was coming. For the first time since her mother died, Lena felt safe. But safety was a dangerous thing to trust. She closed her eyes, and despite the storm, despite the fear that still coiled in her chest, sleep pulled her under. Lena woke to voices, low, male, outside the cabin. Her eyes snapped open. Dawn light filtered through the window, gray and weak. The storm had passed, but something worse had arrived. Jonah was already at the window, his body tense, his hand resting on something at his belt. A knife. Maybe a gun. Stay quiet, he said without looking at her. Don't move. Lena's heart hammered. She recognized one of the voices outside. Marcus Finn. Holloway's right hand. The man who'd negotiated her marriage contract with Frederick Marsh like she was livestock. Saw tracks leading this way, Finn was saying. Horse tracks. Fresh. Another voice, younger. Could be anyone's, Marcus. Or it could be hers. Finn's voice was sharp. Check the stable. Footsteps crunched through mud. Jonah didn't move from the window. A moment later, the younger voice called out, "There's a horse here! Brown mare, looks worn out. This has to be—" "I know," Finn cut him off. "Knock on the door." Lena's blood turned to ice. Jonah looked at her then, his gray eyes steady. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly. "I don't know you," Lena whispered back. "Fair enough, but I need an answer anyway. Do you trust me?" Lena's mind raced. Outside that door was everything she'd run from. Inside this cabin was a stranger who'd shown her nothing but kindness. It wasn't a real choice. It was just the least terrible option. "Yes," she said. Jonah nodded once. "Then stay in that bed. Don't say a word, no matter what happens." Heavy fists pounded on the door. "Open up! We're looking for a missing woman!" Jonah moved to the door with deliberate slowness. He opened it just enough to stand in the gap, his body blocking the view inside. "Help you, gentlemen?" His voice was casual, almost bored. "We're looking for a woman," Finn said. Lena couldn't see him, but she could hear the suspicion in his voice. "Young, dark hair, probably scared. She ran away from her guardian last night." "You seen anyone like that?" "Nope." "That's your horse in the stable?" "That's my horse." "Funny. Looks like the mare from the Richardson ranch. The one that went missing last night." Jonah's voice didn't change. "Lots of brown mares in Nebraska, friend. That one's mine." "Mind if we take a look inside?" "I do mind, actually." The air went tight with tension. "Now listen here," Finn said, and Lena heard anger creeping into his voice. "We're authorized by Benjamin Holloway to search for his ward. She's in danger, running around in the wild like this. We're just trying to bring her home safe." "And I'm telling you, I haven't seen any woman," Jonah said. "Just me and my horse. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got work to do." He started to close the door. Finn's boot shot out, blocking it. "I don't think you understand the situation." "I understand perfectly." Jonah's voice dropped, cold as winter. "You're standing on my property without permission, calling my horse a thief, and trying to force your way into my home. That's 3 reasons for me to put a bullet in you before breakfast." Silence. Then Finn laughed, but it was forced. "That's a lot of talk for one man against 3. 3 men who don't know what I've got aimed at them from inside this door," Jonah said calmly. "And 3 men who aren't being paid enough to die for Benjamin Holloway's family problems. But hey, if you want to test me, go ahead. See what happens." Lena held her breath. The younger man spoke up. "Marcus, maybe we should—" "Shut up," Finn snapped. Then, to Jonah, "We'll be checking the other homesteads in the area. If we find out you're lying—" "You won't," Jonah said. "Because I'm not. Now get off my property." More silence. Then, finally, footsteps, moving away. Jonah didn't close the door until the hoofbeats faded into the distance. When he turned back to Lena, his expression was grim. "They'll be back." Lena sat up, clutching the blanket. "They recognized the horse. They suspected the horse. They didn't confirm it. But yeah, they'll keep looking." Jonah moved to the window, watching the horizon. "How badly does Holloway want you back?" "Badly enough to offer a reward, probably." "How much?" "I don't know. Enough." Jonah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You can't stay here. They'll come back with more men, maybe the law. We need to get you somewhere safe." "Where?" Lena's voice cracked. "I have no family, no friends who wouldn't turn me over to Holloway. Nowhere to go." "Then we make somewhere," Jonah said simply. He looked at her. "But first, you need to decide something. Are you going back, or are you fighting?" "I can't fight Holloway. He has money, power, connections." "I didn't ask what he has. I ask what you're going to do." Lena stared at him. In the growing daylight, she could see Jonah's face more clearly. There were scars there, faint lines around his eyes, a life lived hard. But his gaze was direct, unwavering. "I want to fight," she said quietly, "but I don't know how." "Then we'll figure it out together," Jonah said. "But it starts with you making a choice, Lena. Are you a runaway, or are you a woman who's taking control of her own life?" The question hung in the air between them. Lena thought about her mother, who died slowly, trapped in Holloway's web of control. She thought about Jonah's sister, who'd been forced into a marriage that killed her. She thought about Frederick Marsh's cold eyes assessing her like merchandise. And then she thought about herself, really thought about who she wanted to be. "I'm taking control," she said. Her voice was stronger now. "I'm not going back." Jonah nodded, and for the first time, the ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Good. Then let's make a plan." The plan was simple in theory, dangerous in practice. Jonah spread a hand-drawn map on the table, his finger tracing a route northwest. "There's a settlement called Cedar Falls, 3 days' ride from here. My cousin runs a boarding house. She doesn't ask questions, and she doesn't care about Holloway's money." 3 days is a long time to stay hidden," Lena said. "Which is why we leave in an hour, before Finn comes back with reinforcements." Lena's stomach clenched. "We?" Jonah looked up from the map. "You think I'm sending you out there alone? You don't owe me anything. You've already done more than—" "Stop!" Jonah's voice was firm. "I told you last night, when Holloway's men come back, they'll have to go through me. That promise doesn't expire just because the sun came up." "But your work, the route riding, can wait." He rolled up the map. "Right now, getting you safe is the job. Everything else is secondary." Lena wanted to argue, but the look in Jonah's eyes told her it would be pointless. He'd made his decision. "Why are you really doing this?" Jonah was quiet for a moment. "Because I couldn't save my sister. But maybe I can save you." He moved to a trunk in the corner. "Now get dressed. We're burning daylight." He tossed her a bundle of clothes, men's clothes, trousers, a shirt, a jacket. "What's this?" "Disguise. A woman traveling alone draws attention. A young man traveling with his brother? Nobody looks twice." Jonah turned his back. "Change fast. I'll pack supplies." Lena's hands shook as she pulled on the unfamiliar clothing. The trousers felt strange, liberating, and terrifying all at once. When she was dressed, she caught her reflection in the small mirror by the wash basin. With her dark hair tucked under a hat, she could almost pass for a boy. "Ready?" Jonah asked without turning. "Yes." He looked at her and nodded approval. "Keep your hat low. Don't talk to strangers. If anyone asks, your name is Lee, and you're my younger brother. We're heading to Cedar Falls to visit family." "Lee," Lena repeated. "I can do that." "Good. Let's move." Outside, Jonah saddled both horses with practiced efficiency. The brown mare Lena had stolen looked better after a night's rest, but guilt still twisted in her stomach. "We need to return this horse to the Richardsons," she said. "We will, eventually. Right now, it's evidence you are here, which means we're taking it with us." Jonah handed her the reins. "Can you ride?" "I got here, didn't I?" "Getting here desperate and panicked is different from a 3-day journey. Can you actually ride?" Lena lifted her chin. "My mother taught me, before Holloway decided ladies shouldn't do such things." "Your mother sounds like she had sense." "She did, until she married my father." Lena mounted the horse, settling into the saddle. "And then she spent the rest of her life trying to make the best of a bad decision." Jonah swung onto his own horse, a large black gelding that looked like it could run for days. "She leave you anything, besides jewelry?" "How did you know about the jewelry?" Felt it when you came in last night. Heavy bag at your waist. Jonah's eyes were kind. I wasn't going to take it, if that's what you're worried about. I wasn't, Lena said, and realized it was true. She left me her journals. Holloway burned them, said they were filled with inappropriate ideas. What kind of ideas? That women should have choices, that marriage shouldn't be a business transaction, that love matters more than money. Lena's voice caught. Dangerous ideas, apparently. Jonah was quiet for a moment. Then, your mother was right. About all of it. They rode in silence for the first hour, staying off the main roads, cutting through fields and forests. Every snap of a branch made Lena's heart race. Every distant sound could be Finn and his men closing in. How long have you been riding for Butterfield? Lena asked, needing to fill the silence with something other than her own fear. 4 years, since my sister died. What did you do before? Ranching. Had a small spread with my father. But after Elizabeth, Jonah's jaw tightened. I couldn't stay there. Too many memories. Too much anger at myself for not seeing what was happening to her. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I knew the man she married was cruel. I knew she was miserable. But I told myself it wasn't my business, that she'd made her choice. He shook his head. By the time I realized how bad it was too late. She was gone. Lena understood that guilt. She'd watched her mother fade slowly under Holloway's control, telling herself there was nothing she could do. Until last night, she'd been heading down the same path. My mother used to say, regret is just another cage, Lena said softly. The only way out is to do better next time. Smart woman. She was. That's why Holloway hated her. They rode on, and Lena found herself studying Jonah. He sat easy in the saddle, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon. A man used to watching for trouble. But there was something else there, too. A gentleness in the way he handled his horse. A carefulness in how he'd treated her. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Depends on the question. Last night, when I told you I was afraid of you, why didn't that make you angry? Jonah considered this. Because fear is honest, and honestly is rare. He glanced at her. Most people would rather lie and smile than tell you the truth and risk offending you. Your fear told me everything I needed to know. That you'd been hurt before, that you had reason not to trust, that you were brave enough to admit it anyway. Brave? I was terrified. Same thing sometimes. Bravery isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing what needs doing anyway. Is that what you're doing now? Being brave? Jonah's smile was faint. No, this is just the right thing to do. Around midday, they stopped to rest the horses by a creek. Jonah pulled out dried meat and hard bread from his saddlebag. Not much, but it'll keep us going, he said, handing her a portion. Lena ate mechanically, her mind spinning with everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, she'd woken up in her bedroom at Holloway's estate, trapped and hopeless. Now she was dressed as a boy, riding through Nebraska wilderness with a stranger who'd appointed himself her protector. What happens when we get to Cedar Falls? She asked. My cousin finds you work, maybe at the boarding house, maybe somewhere else in town. You lay low, save money, build a new life. And Holloway? Eventually gives up looking. You're not his daughter. You're his ward. There's a limit to how much time and money he'll spend chasing you, especially if you stay gone long enough. You don't know him. He doesn't give up. Ever. Lena's hands clenched. He'll keep looking because I'm worth money to him. The marriage contract with Marsh comes with a significant finder's fee. Jonah's expression darkened. He's selling you. Essentially, yes. And Marsh knows this? That you're being forced? Marsh doesn't care. He wants a young wife who'll give him heirs and keep his house. My feelings about it are irrelevant." Jesus. Jonah stood, pacing. This is worse than I thought. Which is why running might not be enough, Lena said quietly. Holloway has reach, money, connections. Unless I can prove he's unfit to be my guardian, or unless I turn 21 and inherit my mother's estate outright, he controls everything. When do you turn 21? 8 months. 8 months, Jonah repeated. That's not impossible. We just need to keep you hidden for 8 months. And then what? You think Holloway will just hand over my inheritance? He's been embezzling from the estate for years. My mother knew, but couldn't prove it. If I come back demanding my rights, he'll destroy any evidence of his theft and claim I'm hysterical. Jonah stopped pacing. Your mother knew he was stealing? She suspected. She kept her own records, separate books that tracked discrepancies. But Holloway found them after she died and burned everything. Everything? Lena hesitated. Then, slowly, she reached for the cloth bag at her waist. Not everything. She pulled out her mother's jewelry box and opened it. Beneath the pearls and brooches was a false bottom. She pressed the hidden latch, and the small compartment opened. Inside were folded papers, yellowed with age. My mother's insurance policy, Lena said. She made copies, hid them here, in the one place she knew Holloway would never think to look. Jonah stared at the papers. What are they? Ledgers, contracts, proof of every transaction Holloway made in her name without authorization. Proof that he's been stealing from the estate for years. Lena's hands shook as she held them. If these became public, he'd be ruined, arrested probably. Why didn't your mother use them? Because she was dying and she was scared. Scared of what Holloway would do to me if she fought him. She thought if she stayed quiet, he'd at least take care of me after she was gone. Lena's voice broke. She didn't realize he'd already arranged to sell me off. Jonah took the papers carefully, scanning them. This is detailed. Dates, amounts, witnesses. This is solid evidence. Evidence I can't use while he's still my legal guardian. If I come forward now, he'll claim I forged them. It'll be my word against his, and he has friends in every courthouse in the state. So what do you want to do? Lena looked at him. I want to destroy him, not just escape. Destroy him completely. Take back everything he stole from my mother. Make sure he can never hurt anyone else the way he hurt us. That's not running away, Jonah said slowly. That's war. I know. War requires allies, resources, a plan beyond hiding in Cedar Falls. I know that too. Jonah studied her, his gray eyes searching. You've been thinking about this for a while, haven't you? This wasn't just a panic escape. Lena shook her head. I've been planning this for 6 months, ever since I found my mother's papers. I was going to wait until my 21st birthday, but when Holloway accelerated the wedding, she swallowed hard. I knew I had to move now, or lose my chance forever. Why didn't you tell me this last night? Because I didn't know if I could trust you. For all I knew, you were going to turn me in for the reward money. Lena met his gaze. But you didn't. You helped me. And now I'm trusting you with the truth. I'm not just a scared girl running from an arranged marriage. I'm someone who's going to take back what's mine. The question is, are you still willing to help? Jonah was quiet for a long moment. Then he carefully folded the papers and handed them back to her. Cedar Falls is still the first step, but it's not the end destination anymore. What do you mean? I mean, we're going to need more than just a hiding place. We're going to need a lawyer, a good one, someone who isn't afraid of Holloway's money or connections. Do you know someone like that? Maybe. There's a man in Lincoln who helped my father once. Jacob Morrison. He's honest, which is rare, and he's stubborn, which is rarer. If anyone can make this case work, it's him. Lincoln is in the opposite direction of Cedar Falls. I know. Finn and his men are probably watching the roads to Lincoln. I know that too. Lena's heart was pounding. This is riskier, much riskier. Everything about this is risky, Jonah said. But you're right, running isn't enough. If you want to actually win, you need to fight smart. And that means legal help. Why are you doing this? Really? This is so much more than just helping someone escape. Jonah looked away toward the horizon. Because my sister didn't have these papers. She didn't have proof. She didn't have options. All she had was fear and a husband who knew she was trapped. His voice was rough. You have a chance she never had. Evidence, courage, a plan. I'm not letting that go to waste just because it's dangerous. Lena felt tears sting her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We haven't done anything but talk. Jonah mounted his horse. Come on. We need to make the river crossing before dark. They rode hard for the next several hours. The landscape changed from open prairie to rolling hills dotted with cottonwood trees. Jonah kept them moving fast, always watching, always listening. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, they crested a hill, and Jonah pulled his horse to a sudden stop. What is it? Lena asked. Riders. 3 of them. Coming from the east. Lena's blood went cold. Finn? Can't tell from here, but we're not waiting to find out. Jonah scanned the terrain. There's a ravine about half a mile west. We can hide there until they pass. They spurred their horses forward, racing toward the ravine. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. The riders were getting closer. She could hear the thunder of hooves now. They reached the ravine just as the riders came into view over the hill behind them. Down, Jonah hissed. Get down now! Lena dismounted and pulled her horse into the ravine, Jonah right behind her. They pressed themselves against the rocky wall, hands over the horses' noses to keep them quiet. The riders approached. Lena could hear voices now. Tracking for 2 days and nothing. Marcus is going to be furious. Maybe she drowned in the storm. Could have happened. Or maybe someone's hiding her. That route rider seemed awful defensive. Lena's breath caught. They were talking about Jonah. The third voice was older, harder. Holloway wants her found. Dead or alive, he doesn't care anymore. Says she stole valuable property when she ran. The jewelry? Has to be. With a small fortune, apparently. He's offering $500 to whoever brings her back. Another $100 for the jewelry. $500. That was more than most men made in a year. Jonah's hand found Lena's in the darkness, squeezing once. A silent message. Stay calm. The riders passed above them, so close Lena could have reached up and touched a stirrup. She held her breath until they disappeared over the next hill. Only then did Jonah release her hand. Dead or alive, Lena whispered. He doesn't even care if I survive. Which tells me he's more worried about those papers than he is about you, Jonah said grimly. He knows what you have, or at least suspects. How? Maybe he figured out the jewelry box had a false bottom. Maybe he's just being thorough. Either way, this changes things. How? It means he's desperate. Desperate men are dangerous. They make mistakes, but they also take bigger risks. Jonah checked his rifle. We need to move faster, and we need to assume every person we meet might be looking for that reward money. They waited another hour before climbing out of the ravine. By then, full darkness had fallen, and navigating became treacherous. We'll camp here tonight, Jonah said. No fire. It's too risky. They made a cold camp in a small hollow sheltered by trees. Jonah unpacked bedrolls and the last of the food. "You should sleep," he said. "I'll keep watch." "You barely slept last night." "I'll sleep when you're safe." Lena settled into the bedroll, but sleep felt impossible. Her mind raced with everything she'd learned. Holloway didn't just want her back. He wanted her silenced. Permanently, if necessary. "Jonah?" she said into the darkness. "Yeah?" "What if we can't win? What if Holloway's too powerful, too connected? What if—" "Then we lose," Jonah said simply. "But at least we'll lose fighting. That's better than never trying at all." "Is it? Fighting and losing seems worse than just accepting things." "You don't believe that. If you did, you wouldn't have climbed out that window. You wouldn't have stolen a horse and ridden through a storm. You wouldn't be here right now." His voice softened. "You're a fighter, Lena Gray. You just forgot for a while. But your mother knew. That's why she left you those papers. She knew someday you'd be brave enough to use them." Lena's throat tightened. "I'm not brave. I'm terrified." Still the same thing. She closed her eyes, and this time, exhaustion pulled her under. When she woke, dawn was breaking, and Jonah was already packing up camp. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. Lena sat up, immediately alert. "What's wrong?" "I've been thinking about Lincoln, about Morrison, about Holloway's reach." Jonah crouched beside her. "Here's the truth. Going to Lincoln is probably a trap. Holloway knows you'll need legal help eventually. He's probably already got people watching Morrison's office, along with every other lawyer in the state." Lena's stomach sank. "So what do we do?" "We don't go to Morrison. We bring Morrison to us." "How?" "I send word through the Butterfield line. Riders carry messages faster than anyone expects. We get a message to Morrison, asking him to meet us somewhere neutral, somewhere Holloway won't expect." "Where?" Jonah smiled faintly. "My cousin's boarding house in Cedar Falls. It's perfect, small enough that strangers stand out, remote enough that Holloway's men won't be watching it, and my cousin owes me enough favors that she'll help without asking questions." "That's actually brilliant. Don't sound so surprised." Despite everything, Lena almost laughed. "I'm not. It's just, you're really good at this. Spent 4 years riding dangerous routes, dealing with bandits and desperate people. You pick up a few things." Jonah stood, offering his hand. "Come on, we've got a long ride ahead, and I want to make Cedar Falls before Finn figures out we're not heading to Lincoln." They rode hard all day, stopping only briefly to rest the horses and choke down food. Lena's muscles ached from the constant motion, but she didn't complain. Every mile was a mile further from Holloway. By late afternoon, they crested a hill and Jonah pointed to a small settlement in the valley below. "Cedar Falls," he said. "We made it." Lena stared at the town. It was small, maybe 30 buildings total, clustered around a main street. Smoke rose from chimneys. People moved about their business, unaware that a fugitive was about to ride into their midst. "Your cousin won't ask questions?" Lena asked. "Sarah asks plenty of questions. She just doesn't expect answers." Jonah started down the hill. "Keep your hat low. Remember, you're Lee, my younger brother. Let me do the talking." They rode into town as the sun began to set. A few people glanced their way, but no one paid them much attention. Just 2 more travelers passing through. The boarding house was at the end of the main street, a 2-story building with a painted sign, "Miller's Rest." "Miller?" Lena asked. "Sarah kept her maiden name when her husband died. Easier for business." Jonah dismounted and tied his horse to the rail. "Wait here." He disappeared inside. Lena sat on her horse, trying to look casual, while her heart raced. What if Sarah refused to help? What if someone in town recognized her, despite the disguise? What if... The door opened, and Jonah emerged with a woman who could only be his cousin. She was tall, broad-shouldered, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes swept over Lena with sharp assessment. "This the girl?" she asked Jonah. "Her name's Lee," Jonah said pointedly. Sarah snorted. "Lee, right. Come on inside, Lee, before someone sees you sitting there looking terrified." Lena dismounted and followed them into the boarding house. Inside, it was warm and surprisingly comfortable. Handmade quilts, simple furniture, and the smell of fresh bread. Sarah closed the door and turned to face them. "All right, no more games. Who's after her, and how much trouble are we in?" "Benjamin Holloway." "And a lot," Jonah said. Sarah's expression didn't change. "The railroad man?" "The same." "Wonderful. You always did know how to pick your battles." Sarah looked at Lena. "Let me guess. You're the missing ward everyone's talking about. The one worth $500. Lena's eyes widened. "It's spread this far already?" "Honey, reward money like that travels faster than lightning. Every bounty hunter and desperate farmer between here and Omaha is looking for a dark-haired girl running from her guardian." Sarah crossed her arms. "Lucky for you, nobody's looking for a skinny boy traveling with his brother. That disguise is actually pretty good." "Sarah," Jonah said quietly, "I need your help." "Obviously. Question is, what kind of help?" Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Are we hiding her, or are we fighting?" Jonah glanced at Lena. Lena straightened her shoulders. "Fighting. I have evidence that Holloway's been embezzling from my mother's estate. I need a lawyer willing to take the case." "You need Jacob Morrison," Sarah said immediately. "That's what I thought, but going to Lincoln is too risky." "So bring him here," Sarah shrugged. "I'll send word through the express line. Morrison can be here in 3 days, if he's interested." "And if he's not?" Lena asked. Sarah's smile was sharp. "Then we find someone else. Or we handle it ourselves." She gestured toward the stairs. "Either way, you need a room and a hot meal. Come on, you look like you haven't eaten properly in days." As they climbed the stairs, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. But hope was a fragile thing, and Sarah shattered it before Lena had even finished her first hot meal. "You need to understand something," Sarah said, setting down a plate of stew. "Morrison's a good man, but he's also careful. He won't come running just because Jonah asks. He'll want to know what he's walking into." "So tell him," Lena said. "That's the problem. The express line isn't private. Every word we send could be read by someone on Holloway's payroll." Sarah sat across from her. "We need to be smart about this." Jonah leaned against the doorframe. "What do you suggest?" "Coded message. Something Morrison will understand, but others won't." Sarah drummed her fingers on the table. "Something from that case he worked on with your father." "The water rights dispute," Jonah said slowly. "He represented us against the railroad." "Perfect. We reference that case, mention similar circumstances, ask for consultation. Morrison's smart enough to read between the lines." "And if someone else reads it first?" "Then they see a routine legal inquiry. Nothing that screams, 'fugitive hiding here.'" Sarah stood. "I'll draft it tonight. Message goes out at dawn." After Sarah left, Lena pushed her half-eaten stew away. 3 days. That's a long time to wait." "It's 3 days for Holloway's men to search everywhere else," Jonah said. "By the time Morrison arrives, they'll have moved on to other towns." "You're assuming they move on. What if they don't?" "Then we deal with it." Jonah's voice was calm, steady. "But panicking now doesn't help." Lena stood, pacing. I'm not panicking. I'm being realistic. Holloway has money, resources, men. We have a coded message and hope. Those aren't even odds. They never are. That's why you fight smart instead of hard. And what happens when smart isn't enough? Jonah caught her wrist gently, stopping her pacing. Then you have me, and Sarah, and Morrison if he comes. You're not alone in this, Lena. His hand was warm on her wrist, solid, real. Lena looked up at him and saw something in his gray eyes that made her breath catch. Why do you care so much? She whispered. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brave enough to run, smart enough to bring evidence, strong enough to want to fight instead of hide. His thumb traced her pulse point. That's more than enough. Jonah. A sharp knock interrupted whatever she'd been about to say. Sarah's voice came through the door. Jonah, we have a problem. Jonah released Lena's wrist and opened the door. Sarah's face was pale. There's a man downstairs asking about a missing girl. Says he's working for Benjamin Holloway. Lena's blood turned to ice. Does he know we're here? Jonah asked. Not yet. He's questioning everyone in the common room. But it's only a matter of time before he asks about new arrivals. How many men? Just one. But he's asking questions like he expects answers. Jonah turned to Lena. Stay here. Don't make a sound. What are you going to do? What I do best. Handle it. He followed Sarah out, closing the door behind him. Lena pressed her ear to the door, heart hammering. She could hear voices drifting up from below. Sarah's cheerful tone, a man's gruff responses, other guests murmuring. Then Jonah's voice, casual and unconcerned. Evening. You looking for someone? Missing girl, young, dark hair, probably scared. Ran away from her guardian 3 days ago. Anyone matching that description come through here? This is a boarding house. We get lots of people. Jonah's tone was bored. Most of them don't announce their life stories. I'm prepared to pay for information. How much? Lena's stomach clenched. Was Jonah actually considering? $50 for solid information leading to her recovery. $50 is a lot of money, Jonah said slowly. What's this girl supposed to have done? Stole valuable property. Her guardian just wants her back safe. If she stole something valuable, sounds like she's dangerous. She's just a confused young woman. Needs protecting from herself. Right. Jonah's voice was flat. Well, I haven't seen anyone like that. But I'll keep an eye out. Where can I reach you if something comes up? I'll be staying here tonight. Room at the end of the hall. Lena's blood ran cold. The room at the end of the hall was 3 doors down from hers. She heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Male. Coming closer. Lena looked around frantically. The window, but it was 2 stories up. The wardrobe, too obvious. Under the bed. The footsteps passed her door and continued down the hall. A door opened and closed. Lena exhaled shakily. A moment later, soft footsteps approached, and Jonah slipped back into her room. He's here for the night, Jonah said quietly. We need to move you. Where? Sarah's private quarters, attic room. Nobody goes up there except her. What about you? I'll stay visible. Keep him focused on me, not on phantom girls who might not even exist. Jonah moved to the window, checking the street below. But we need to move now, while he's settling in. They crept down the hall, avoiding the creaky floorboards Sarah had warned them about. At the end of the hallway was a narrow staircase leading up. Sarah was waiting at the top. This way, quick. The attic room was small but surprisingly comfortable. A narrow bed, a washstand, and a small window overlooking the back alley. You'll be safe here, Sarah said. That man won't even know this room exists. I don't rent it out. Thank you, Lena whispered. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you're still breathing. Sarah handed her a blanket. Try to sleep. Morning will come whether you're ready or not. But sleep was impossible. Lena lay awake, listening to every sound. Footsteps below. Voices. The creak of floorboards. At some point, she heard men talking. Jonah and the stranger. Their voices muffled, but tense. She must have dozed eventually, because she woke to Sarah shaking her shoulder in the gray pre-dawn light. Get up. We have bigger problems. Lena sat up. What happened? The man downstairs? He's not alone anymore. 3 more men arrived an hour ago. They're organizing a search of every building in town. Sarah's face was grim. And they have a warrant from a judge in Lincoln. A warrant for what? For your arrest. Apparently, Holloway's claiming you stole more than jewelry. He's filed charges for embezzlement, fraud, and theft of estate documents. Lena's mouth went dry. He's accusing me of stealing from my own mother's estate? Smart move on his part. Now it's not just a family dispute. It's a criminal matter. Local law has to cooperate. Sarah crossed her arms. They'll search this building within the hour. Where's Jonah? Downstairs, trying to stall them. But it won't work for long. Sarah pulled out a bundle of clothes. Put these on. Different disguise this time. The clothes were a woman's dress, simple and worn. A widow's mourning dress, complete with a black veil. I don't understand, Lena said. They're looking for a young girl or a boy traveling with his brother. They're not looking for a widow. Sarah helped her into the dress. You're going to walk out the front door while they're searching the back rooms. Jonah will meet you at the church 2 streets over. What if they stop me? They won't. Widows are invisible. Society doesn't look at us, doesn't question us. We're ghosts. Sarah adjusted the veil over Lena's face. Keep your head down, walk slowly, and don't make eye contact. You're in mourning. You're grief-stricken. You're barely aware of anything around you. Sarah, no time for doubts. This is happening now. Sarah opened the door. Go. Lena descended the stairs on shaking legs. In the common room below, she could hear men's voices, doors opening and closing. The search had begun. She walked through the boarding house with measured steps, her head bowed, one hand clutching a handkerchief to her veiled face. No one stopped her. No one even looked at her twice. She stepped out onto the street just as the sun broke over the horizon. The church was easy to find, a small white building with a simple cross. Lena slipped inside and found Jonah waiting in the back pew. You made it, he said. They didn't even see me. Good. Sarah knows what she's doing. Jonah stood. But we can't stay in Cedar Falls. Not anymore. Holloway's made this official. The law is on his side now. So what do? We go to Morrison. Today. No waiting for coded messages or safe meetings. We ride to Lincoln and we make our case. That's insane. Holloway will have people watching Morrison's office. Probably. But we're out of options. Either we fight now or we run forever. And I don't think you want to run forever. Lena looked at him, this stranger who'd become her protector, her ally, her... What? She didn't have words for what Jonah was becoming to her. No, she said quietly. I don't want to run forever. Then we fight. Today. Now. Jonah took her hand. But I need you to understand something first. Once we go to Morrison, once we file those papers, there's no going back. Holloway will know what you have. He'll come at you with everything he's got. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I know. And you're willing to risk it anyway? Lena thought about her mother, wasting away in Holloway's gilded cage. She thought about Jonah's sister, crushed by a marriage she couldn't escape. She thought about every woman who'd been told to stay quiet, stay small, stay grateful for whatever scraps men decided to give them. "Yes," she said, "I'm willing to risk everything." Jonah's grip tightened on her hand. "Then let's go end this." They slipped out the back of the church and found their horses where Sarah had hidden them in a nearby stable. As they rode out of Cedar Falls, Lena looked back once at the boarding house. Sarah stood in the upstairs window, watching them go. She raised one hand in farewell. Lena raised hers in return. The ride to Lincoln took all day. They pushed the horses hard, stopping only when absolutely necessary. Every shadow could be Holloway's men. Every traveler could be a bounty hunter. But they rode on. By the time they reached Lincoln's outskirts, the sun was setting, and Lena was swaying in her saddle from exhaustion. "Morrison's office is on 5th Street, Jonah said. "But we can't just walk in the front door. Holloway will have men watching." "So how do we get in?" "Morrison lives above his office. There's a back entrance through the alley." Jonah guided his horse down a side street. "We'll wait until dark, then approach." They waited in the shadows as night fell. Lena's nerves were stretched to the breaking point. This was it. This was the moment everything changed. "Ready?" Jonah asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." They dismounted and approached the back entrance on foot. Jonah knocked, 3 quick raps, a pause, then 2 more. A code, Lena realized. The door opened a crack. A man's face appeared, weathered and suspicious. "Jonah Miller?" the man said. "Is that you?" "Hello, Jacob. Been a while." Morrison opened the door wider. He was in his 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that immediately fixed on Lena. "And who's this?" "Someone who needs your help," Jonah said. "Can we come in?" Morrison hesitated, then stepped back. "Quickly, before someone sees you." Inside, Morrison's office was exactly what Lena had expected. Walls lined with law books, a large desk covered in papers, the smell of ink and tobacco. But Morrison himself was nothing like the lawyer she'd met in Holloway's world. He looked at her with curiosity, not calculation. "You're the gray girl," Morrison said. It wasn't a question. "The one Holloway's looking for." "How did you—" "I've been practicing law in this state for 30 years. I know when a case stinks, and Holloway's warrant reeks." Morrison sat behind his desk. "So, you going to tell me why you ran, or should I guess?" Lena pulled out her mother's papers and placed them on the desk. "Because my guardian has been embezzling from my mother's estate for years, and he was about to sell me to Frederick Marsh to cover his tracks." Morrison picked up the papers, his expression unchanging as he read. But Lena saw his jaw tighten. His hands gripped the pages a little harder. "These are good," he said finally. "Very good. Your mother was meticulous." "Can you use them?" "In court? Absolutely. The problem is getting to court without Holloway shutting us down first." Morrison set the papers down. "He's already filed criminal charges against you. Publicly, you're a thief and a fraud. Your word against his won't carry much weight." "So we're back to running," Lena said, despair creeping into her voice. "I didn't say that." Morrison leaned back in his chair. "I said your word against his won't work." "But what if we had more than your word? What if we had witnesses, people Holloway wronged who are willing to testify?" "Do we have people like that?" "Your mother wasn't the only victim. Holloway's been operating this way for years. Widows, orphans, anyone vulnerable he could manipulate through trusts and guardianships." Morrison's eyes gleamed. "I've represented 3 families who suspected him but couldn't prove anything. If we combined their testimonies with your evidence—" "We'd have a case," Jonah finished. "More than a case. We'd have a scandal. The kind that brings down powerful men." Morrison stood. But it'll take time to gather those testimonies, and Holloway won't wait patiently while we build our case. How much time? Lena asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I don't have 3 weeks. Holloway's men are everywhere. It's only a matter of time before... A crash downstairs cut her off. Shouting, heavy footsteps. Morrison, we know she's in there. Open this door, by order of the law. Lena's heart stopped. They'd found her. Morrison moved fast for a man his age. He shoved the papers into a leather case and thrust it at Jonah. There's a safe room behind the bookshelf. Get in there, both of you. What about you? Jonah asked. I'm a lawyer. I'll lawyer. Morrison pushed them toward the bookshelf. Go, now. Jonah pulled a hidden latch, and the bookshelf swung open, revealing a narrow space behind it. He and Lena slipped inside just as the office door burst open. Through the crack in the bookshelf, Lena could see men flooding into the room. 5 of them. 6. Led by Marcus Finn. Where is she? Finn demanded. Where is who? Morrison's voice was infuriatingly calm. Don't play games. We have witnesses who saw a girl and a man matching Miller's description enter through your back door an hour ago. You have witnesses who saw people entering my building. People enter buildings all the time, Mr. Finn. It's not particularly suspicious. Search the place, Finn ordered his men. They tore through Morrison's office like a storm. Drawers yanked open, papers scattered, books thrown to the floor. Lena held her breath as one of the men approached the bookshelf. His hand reached out, touching the wood. This shelf looks off, he muttered. It's a custom build, Morrison said smoothly. Had it made 20 years ago, cost a fortune. The man knocked on the wood. The sound was hollow. There's space behind here. Finn strode over. Open it. I will not. That shelf is structurally integrated into the wall. You pull it out, the whole thing comes down. Morrison's voice hardened. And unless you have a warrant to destroy my property, I suggest you leave it alone. We have a warrant for the girl's arrest, which authorizes you to search, not to demolish. There's a difference, Mr. Finn. I'm a lawyer. I know these things. Finn's face darkened. If we find out you're hiding her, then you'll have legal recourse. Until then, you're in my office without my permission, destroying my property. I could have you arrested for breaking and entering. We were invited in by no one. I asked you to wait while I checked if anyone was here. You chose to break down my door instead. Morrison gestured toward the destruction. Now you're going to leave, and we're going to pretend this didn't happen. Because if it goes to court, Mr. Finn, I will make you and Benjamin Holloway regret the day you tried to intimidate an officer of the court. The standoff lasted an eternity. Finally, Finn jerked his head toward his men. Let's go, but we're posting men outside. Nobody leaves this building without us knowing. They filed out, boots heavy on the stairs. Morrison waited a full 5 minutes before opening the bookshelf. You can come out now. Lena stumbled out, her legs shaking. They're watching the building. We're trapped. For the moment. Morrison moved to his desk, surveying the damage. But Finn made a mistake. He showed his hand too early. Now I know Holloway's desperate enough to break the law himself. That doesn't help us get out of here, Jonah said. Actually, it does, Morrison smiled grimly. Because now this isn't just about your case, Miss Gray. It's about my professional integrity being violated. And judges take that very seriously. He sat down and began writing. I'm going to file a complaint first thing tomorrow morning. Harassment, illegal search, destruction of property. It won't stop Holloway, but it'll slow him down. We need more than slow, Lena said. We need him stopped completely. Then we give the court what it can't ignore. We file your case tomorrow, before Holloway knows we're ready. before he can prepare a defense. Morrison looked up, his eyes fierce. You want to fight? We fight now. All in. No holding back. He'll destroy us, Lena whispered. Maybe, but he'll have to do it in public, in front of judges and juries and newspapers. And that's not how men like Holloway operate. They work in shadows. Force them into the light, and they burn. Jonah's hand found Lena's. Your choice. Lena looked at the papers scattered across Morrison's floor. Her mother's meticulous evidence. Years of secrets documented in careful handwriting. We file tomorrow, she said. We end this. Morrison nodded. Then you should rest. There's a room upstairs. You'll be safe there tonight. As they climbed the stairs to Morrison's living quarters, Lena felt the weight of what they'd just decided. Tomorrow, everything would be public. Tomorrow, Holloway would know exactly what she had. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. But tonight, for just a few hours, she could rest. Jonah stayed at the door as she settled onto the small cot Morrison had provided. Thank you, Lena said softly, for all of this, for believing me, for helping me. Don't, Jonah said quietly. Don't thank me for doing what should have been done a long time ago. But you didn't have to. Yes, I did. He met her eyes. Because you matter, Lena. Not your money, not your estate. You. And nobody should have to fight alone. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning Lena wasn't ready to examine. Get some sleep, Jonah said. Tomorrow changes everything. He closed the door softly behind him. Lena lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the city outside. Somewhere out there, Finn and his men were watching, waiting. But inside these walls, she had allies. She had evidence. She had a chance. And tomorrow, she would take it. Morning came too fast, and not fast enough. Lena woke to Morrison's knock on the door, his voice terse through the wood. It's time. The courthouse opens in an hour. She dressed quickly in the same widow's clothes Sarah had given her. The veil would serve her well today, not to hide from Finn's men, but to hide her face in court. Let Holloway wonder. Let him sweat. Jonah was waiting downstairs, freshly shaved, his expression grim. Morrison says we go out the front door, together, no hiding. That's insane. Finn's men are right outside. That's the point. Morrison appeared, carrying a leather briefcase. If we sneak out the back, it looks like we're ashamed, like we're guilty. We walk out the front door, heads high, and we dare them to stop us. They will stop us, Lena said. Let them try. We're going to the courthouse to file legal documents. That's not a crime. If they interfere, they're the ones breaking the law. Morrison's smile was sharp, and I'll make sure everyone knows it. They stepped out onto 5th Street just as the sun broke over the buildings. Finn and 2 of his men were leaning against the wall across the street, and they straightened immediately when they saw Lena. That's her, one of them shouted. Finn stepped forward, hand raised. Miss Gray, you need to come with us. There's a warrant. We're aware of the warrant, Mr. Finn, Morrison said loudly. We're heading to the courthouse now to address it. If you'd like to accompany us in an official capacity, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, I suggest you step aside. You can't just— I'm an officer of the court, escorting my client to a legal proceeding. Are you interfering with the administration of justice, Mr. Finn? Because that's a crime in this state. Finn's jaw worked. Holloway's going to hear about this. I'm counting on it. Morrison gestured toward the street. Shall we? They walked to the courthouse, with Finn and his men trailing behind like wolves. People on the street stopped to stare. Whispers followed them. By the time they reached the courthouse steps, a small crowd had gathered. Morrison turned to face them. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am Jacob Morrison, attorney at law. This young woman is my client, Lena Gray. Today we are filing a civil suit against Benjamin Holloway for embezzlement, fraud, and abuse of guardianship. Anyone interested in justice is welcome to observe these proceedings." The crowd murmured. Someone shouted a question, but Morrison was already climbing the steps. Inside the courthouse, the clerk's face went pale when Morrison presented the paperwork. "This is... Mr. Morrison, this is against Benjamin Holloway. Are you certain?" "I'm a lawyer. I'm always certain." Morrison pushed the documents across the counter. "File them. Now." The clerk's hands shook as he stamped the papers. "Mr. Holloway is going to be..." "Furious? Yes, that's rather the point." As they waited for the filing to be processed, Lena felt the full weight of what they'd done settling over her. There was no going back now. Holloway would see these papers within the hour. He would know everything. "Miss Gray?" She turned. A woman stood behind her, middle-aged and well-dressed, her face somehow familiar. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Lena asked. "No, but I knew your mother." The woman's eyes were kind but sad. "My name is Catherine Wells. Your mother and I were friends before she married your father." Lena's heart clenched. "You knew her?" "I did, and I know what Benjamin Holloway is." Catherine glanced around, then lowered her voice. "I tried to warn her about him. She wouldn't listen. She thought she could manage him, control the situation. By the time she realized she couldn't, it was too late." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I have information about your mother's death." Catherine's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "It wasn't natural causes like Holloway claimed. And I can prove it." The courthouse floor seemed to tilt beneath Lena's feet. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your mother was murdered, and Benjamin Holloway killed her." Morrison grabbed Catherine's arm. "Do not say another word in public. My office. Now." They hurried back through the streets, Finn and his men scrambling to keep up. In Morrison's office, Catherine sat down and pulled out a folded letter. "Your mother wrote this 2 weeks before she died. She gave it to me for safekeeping, made me promise to only open it if something happened to her." Catherine's hands trembled. Something happened. Lena took the letter with numb fingers. Her mother's handwriting, the familiar loops and curves. "My dearest Lena," it began, "if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you are in terrible danger." Lena's vision blurred. She forced herself to keep reading. "Benjamin Holloway has been poisoning me. Slowly, methodically, in doses small enough that no doctor would suspect. He thinks I don't know, but I do. I've known for months. I have been documenting everything. The times he brings me tea, the way my symptoms worsen after he visits, the changes in my medication that he makes without consulting my physician. I know what he's doing. I know why. He wants my estate. He wants to control you, and he will stop at nothing to get both." The words swam on the page. "I should have fought him. I should have exposed him. But I was weak, and I was frightened, and I thought if I stayed quiet, he would leave you alone. I was wrong. Forgive me, my darling girl. Forgive me for not being stronger. The documents are in the jewelry box. The proof is in this letter. Use them both. Destroy him. Live free. I love you always. Mother." Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her mother had known she was being murdered, and had done nothing because she was trying to protect her daughter. "He killed her," Lena whispered. "He murdered my mother." "We can prove it," Morrison said, his voice hard as iron. Medical records, testimony from Catherine about the letter. Your mother's documentation of his visits. This isn't just embezzlement anymore. This is murder. Jonah's hand closed on Lena's shoulder, grounding her. What do you need from us? Time. I need to amend the filing, add these charges, get the court to order an exhumation and autopsy. Morrison was already writing furiously. This changes everything. Murder trumps guardianship disputes. The court will act faster. Take this more seriously. How much time? Lena's voice sounded distant to her own ears. Days. Maybe a week if the judge is sympathetic. Holloway won't wait a week. Then we make him. Morrison looked up. Catherine, are you willing to testify? Yes, I should have done it years ago. Good. We'll need a sworn deposition, today if possible. Morrison turned to Jonah. I need you to find the doctor who treated Lena's mother in her final months. Dr. Harrison. He's retired now, lives on the east side of town. If anyone would remember suspicious symptoms, it's him. I'm on it. Jonah squeezed Lena's shoulder once, then headed for the door. Wait, Lena said. Jonah! He turned back. Be careful. Holloway knows we're fighting back now. He's going to get dangerous. I'm always careful. But his eyes were soft when he looked at her. I'll be back before dark. After he left, Morrison guided Lena to a chair. I know this is overwhelming, but we need to stay focused. Can you do that? My mother was murdered. Yes, and we're going to make the man who killed her pay. But first, you need to breathe. You need to think clearly. Can you do that? Lena forced air into her lungs. Yes. Good, because Holloway is going to come at us hard and fast now. He has to. We've got him cornered, and cornered animals are the most dangerous kind. Morrison was right. Within 2 hours, Holloway's lawyers descended on the courthouse like locusts. 3 of them, expensive suits and practiced smiles, filing motion after motion to delay, dismiss, discredit. Morrison fought them line by line, word by word. By mid-afternoon, the judge called an emergency hearing. Everyone crammed into the courtroom. Lena, Morrison, Catherine, Holloway's lawyers, and half the town, it seemed. Word had spread fast. And then Benjamin Holloway himself walked in. Lena hadn't seen him since the night she'd fled. He looked exactly the same. Silver hair, expensive clothes, the smile that never reached his eyes. When he saw her, that smile widened. Lena, my dear, what a relief to see you safe. I've been so worried. The hypocrisy made her stomach turn. The judge banged his gavel. Order! We're here to address multiple filings in the matter of Gray versus Holloway. Mr. Morrison, you've made some serious allegations. Not allegations, Your Honor. Facts. Documented, provable facts. Morrison stood. Benjamin Holloway has been systematically embezzling from the Gray estate for years. We have the records. But more seriously, we have evidence that he murdered Lena Gray's mother through prolonged poisoning. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly. Order! Mr. Morrison, those are criminal accusations. This is a civil court. I'm aware, Your Honor, which is why I'm requesting this matter be referred to the district attorney immediately. In the meantime, I'm asking for an emergency injunction removing Mr. Holloway as Miss Gray's guardian and freezing all estate assets pending investigation. Holloway's lead lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is absurd. Mr. Morrison has produced no credible evidence of any wrongdoing. These are the desperate fabrications of a disturbed young woman who stole from her guardian and is now trying to justify her crimes. Disturbed? Lena stood before she could stop herself. You call me disturbed? He was going to sell me to Frederick Marsh like I was livestock. He murdered my mother, and you dare? Miss Gray, the judge said sharply, sit down. Morrison pulled her back into her seat. Your Honor, if I may. Make it quick, Counselor. Morrison presented the documents, the ledgers, the discrepancies, her mother's letter, Catherine's testimony about the timing and symptoms. With each piece of evidence, Holloway's smile faded. Furthermore, Morrison said, we have 3 additional families willing to testify that Mr. Holloway employed similar tactics against them. Widows whose estates he managed as executor, only to discover years later that funds had gone missing. Orphans placed under his guardianship who were married off to business associates. There's a pattern here, Your Honor, and Miss Gray is just the latest victim. The judge was silent for a long moment, reading through the documents. These are serious charges, very serious. Which is why we need immediate action, Morrison pressed. Every day Mr. Holloway remains in control of the estate is another day he can destroy evidence, hide assets, or worse, harm my client. Holloway finally spoke, his voice smooth. Your Honor, I have served this community for 30 years. My reputation is beyond reproach. This girl is troubled, has been since her mother's death. I only wanted to help her, to secure her future. This is how she repays my kindness? Kindness? Lena's voice shook with fury. You poisoned my mother. You stole her money. You tried to force me into a marriage with a monster. That's not kindness. That's evil. You see? Holloway turned to the judge. Hysterical. Irrational. This is exactly why she needs a guardian. I don't need a guardian. I need justice. The judge held up a hand. Enough. I'm ordering a full investigation. Mr. Holloway, until this matter is resolved, you are suspended as Miss Gray's guardian. The estate assets are frozen, and I'm referring the murder allegations to the district attorney. He banged his gavel. We'll reconvene in 1 week for a full hearing. Lena felt her knees weaken with relief. They'd done it. They'd actually... Your Honor, Holloway's lawyer said smoothly. What about Miss Gray's living arrangements? If Mr. Holloway is no longer her guardian, where will she stay? She has no family, no means of support. The judge frowned. That's a valid concern. Miss Gray, do you have somewhere to go? Lena's mind raced. Morrison's office wasn't a home. Sarah's boarding house was too far. She had nowhere. The courtroom doors opened. Jonah walked in, Dr. Harrison beside him. She can stay with me, Jonah said clearly. I'll vouch for her character and ensure she appears for all court proceedings. The judge's eyebrows rose. And you are? Jonah Miller, route rider for the Butterfield line. I've known Miss Gray for 5 days, Holloway's lawyer interrupted. Your Honor, surely you can't allow a young woman to live with a man she barely knows. It's improper, scandalous. What's scandalous is trying to sell a woman into marriage, Jonah said flatly. What's improper is murder. If living in my cabin keeps Miss Gray safe until this is resolved, then that's where she'll be. I object. Your objection is noted, the judge said. But I'm more concerned with Miss Gray's safety than society's opinions. Mr. Miller, you're taking responsibility for her? Yes, sir. Then that's settled. The gavel came down. 1 week. Court dismissed. As people filed out, Holloway approached Lena. Jonah immediately stepped between them. You've made a terrible mistake, Holloway said softly. All of you. You think you've won something today, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. We know exactly what you're capable of, Morrison said. That's why we're stopping you. Holloway's eyes went cold. You'll regret this, all of you. He turned and left, his lawyers trailing behind. Dr. Harrison approached, his face grave. "Miss Gray, I need to tell you something. Your mother's symptoms in her final weeks, I suspected something was wrong. The progression didn't match any natural illness. But I had no proof, and Holloway was so insistent that I was being paranoid." His voice broke. "I should have fought harder. I should have demanded tests. I'm sorry." "It's not your fault," Lena said, though her heart was breaking. "He fooled everyone. I've kept all my notes from that time. Detailed observations of her symptoms, the timeline, everything I found unusual. I'll give them to Mr. Morrison. Maybe they'll help prove what he did." "Thank you," Lena whispered. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Cameras flashed, questions shouted. Morrison handled them with practiced ease. "Yes, we're alleging murder. Yes, we have substantial evidence. No further comment at this time." They pushed through the crowd to where the horses were tied. "That went better than I expected," Morrison said. "The judge could have dismissed everything. Instead, he took it seriously." "Because the evidence is solid," Catherine said. "And because people in this town have been wondering about Holloway for years. You've just given them permission to speak up." "Speaking up might get them hurt," Jonah said. "Holloway's not going to take this quietly. Which is why you're taking Lena somewhere safe tonight. Not your cabin. He knows about that now. Somewhere else." "I know a place," Jonah said. "Old hunting lodge about 20 miles north. Nobody's used it in years. We can hole up there until the hearing." "Good. Go now, before Finn and his men regroup." Morrison handed Jonah a stack of papers. "These are copies of everything we filed today. Keep them safe. If anything happens to the originals—" "Nothing's going to happen to them," Morrison's clerk interrupted, appearing at his elbow. "I'm making 3 copies and storing them in 3 different locations. Holloway wants to destroy evidence, he'll have to burn down half of Lincoln." "Smart man," Jonah said. As they mounted their horses, Lena looked back at the courthouse. People were still streaming out, talking excitedly. The story would be all over town by nightfall. Holloway's pristine reputation was crumbling. But he was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. They rode north as the sun began to set, pushing hard to put distance between themselves and Lincoln. Lena's mind was spinning with everything that had happened. Her mother's letter, the murder accusations, the judge's ruling, Jonah's offer to protect her. "Why did you do that?" she asked as they slowed to rest the horses. "In the courtroom. You put yourself directly in Holloway's sights." "Because somebody had to." "That's not an answer." Jonah was quiet for a moment. "When Elizabeth died, I told myself I'd never let it happen again. Never let someone I cared about face evil alone." He looked at her. "And I care about you, Lena. More than I probably should after 5 days. But there it is." Lena's breath caught. "Jonah, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you why I did what I did." He turned back to the road. "Come on. We need to reach the lodge before full dark." But Lena couldn't let it go. "I care about you too. That's the problem." "How is that a problem?" "Because everything is complicated. Because Holloway's trying to destroy me. Because we're in the middle of a legal battle that could get us both killed. Because—" She stopped, frustrated. "Because I don't know if what I'm feeling is real, or if it's just gratitude and fear mixed together." "And you think I haven't thought about that? You think I don't wonder if I'm just trying to save my sister through you?" Jonah's voice was rough. "But here's what I know. When Finn's men were searching that building, all I could think was that I'd rather die than let them take you. When Holloway threatened you in court today, I wanted to put my fist through his face. That's not just duty. That's not just guilt. That's something else. What is it then? I don't know, but I know it's real, and I know I'm not walking away until you're safe. They reached the hunting lodge just as the last light faded. It was exactly as Jonah had described, old, isolated, forgotten. But the roof was solid, and there was a working well out back. "We'll be safe here," Jonah said, helping her dismount. "For tonight, at least." Inside they found dusty furniture and a fireplace full of old ashes. Jonah started a fire while Lena unpacked their meager supplies. "1 week until the hearing," she said. "What happens if the judge rules against us?" "Then we appeal, and we keep appealing until someone listens." "And if Holloway comes after us before then?" "Then I keep my promise. He goes through me first." Lena sat by the fire, watching the flames. "My mother spent her whole life being afraid, being controlled. She knew Holloway was killing her, and she did nothing because she was trying to protect me. And now I'm dragging you into danger because I'm trying to do what she couldn't." "Your mother did protect you. She gave you the evidence you needed. She gave you the truth." Jonah sat beside her. "You're finishing what she started. That's not dragging me into danger. That's honoring her memory." "By getting you killed?" "I'm harder to kill than I look." Despite everything, Lena almost smiled. Then the reality crashed back. "He's going to try something. Before the hearing, he has to." "I know." "What do we do?" "We stay alert. We stay together. And we trust Morrison to do his job." Jonah added wood to the fire. "Get some sleep. I'll keep watch." But Lena couldn't sleep. Every sound outside could be Holloway's men. Every shadow could be death coming for them. Around midnight, Jonah spoke quietly. "Lena?" "I'm awake." "When this is over, when you win, and you will win, what are you going to do?" "I don't know. I haven't thought past surviving." "Think past it now. What do you want?" Lena considered. "I want to take my mother's estate and use it to help other women. Women trapped the way she was. Women who need lawyers but can't afford them. Women who need escape but have nowhere to go." She paused. "I want to make sure nobody else ends up like my mother. Or like your sister." "That's a good answer." "What about you? What do you want?" Jonah stared into the fire. "I want to stop running from ghosts. I want to build something instead of just protecting roots. I want—" He trailed off. "What?" "I want to wake up and not feel guilty that I'm still alive when Elizabeth isn't." Lena reached for his hand. "She wouldn't want you to feel guilty." "Maybe not, but I do anyway." They sat in silence, hands linked, watching the fire burn down to embers. Tomorrow would bring new dangers. Tomorrow, Holloway would make his move. But tonight, for just a few hours, they had each other. And that would have to be enough. Dawn came with the sound of horses. Jonah was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. "Stay down. Don't make a sound." Through the gap in the shutters, Lena counted 4 riders approaching the lodge. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "It's Morrison," Jonah said, lowering the rifle. "And he's brought company." They stepped outside as Morrison dismounted, his face grim. With him were 2 men Lena didn't recognize, and Catherine Wells. "We need to move fast," Morrison said, without preamble. "Holloway's filed a countersuit, claiming you coerced witnesses and fabricated evidence. He's demanding an immediate hearing, today, not next week." The judge agreed. "Today?" Lena's stomach dropped. "We're not ready." "We're as ready as we'll ever be, and waiting gives Holloway time to intimidate more witnesses." Morrison gestured to the two men. This is Thomas Fletcher and Daniel Price, two of the families I mentioned who were victimized by Holloway. They're willing to testify today. Thomas stepped forward, his face weathered and hard. Holloway stole my late wife's estate through guardianship of our daughter. Married her off to his business partner when she was barely 17. She killed herself 2 years later. Daniel's voice was quieter, but no less intense. My mother trusted Holloway to manage her affairs after my father died. He drained her accounts, left her penniless. She died in poverty while Holloway bought a second house. Jesus, Jonah breathed. There are more, Morrison said, but these two have the most documented evidence. Between them, Catherine, Dr. Harrison, and Lena's testimony, we have a case that's hard to ignore. Holloway won't go down quietly, Lena said. No, which is why I brought the sheriff. Morrison nodded toward a fifth rider, approaching through the trees. Sheriff Dalton's been wanting to investigate Holloway for years. Now he has cause. The sheriff was a lean man with sharp eyes. Miss Gray, Mr. Miller, we need to get you to that courthouse alive. I have reason to believe Holloway's hired men to prevent your testimony. How do you know? Jonah asked. Because two of his usual associates were seen leaving town last night, heavily armed, riding north. Same direction as this lodge. Dalton's hand rested on his gun. We leave now, we ride hard, and we don't stop for anything. They were on horseback within minutes, riding in formation with Dalton and Jonah flanking Lena, Morrison and the others following close behind. They'd been riding for less than an hour when Jonah pulled up sharply. Riders ahead, 5 of them, blocking the road. Lena's blood went cold. She recognized the man in front, Marcus Finn. Turn back, Finn called out. This doesn't concern you, Sheriff. The hell it doesn't. You're blocking a public road and threatening witnesses. That's my concern. Dalton's hand moved to his rifle. Stand aside. Can't do that. Mr. Holloway's given us clear instructions. The girl doesn't reach that courthouse. Then you're admitting to conspiracy to obstruct justice, Morrison said loudly. Sheriff, you hearing this? I'm hearing it. Dalton's voice was cold. Finn, you and your boys have one chance. Ride away now, or I arrest every last one of you. Finn's hand moved toward his gun. You're outnumbered, Sheriff. 5 to 1 ain't good odds. 5 to 7, actually, Jonah said, his rifle already aimed. And I don't miss. The tension stretched like a wire ready to snap. Then one of Finn's men spoke up, his voice nervous. Marcus, this is different than what we signed on for. We were supposed to find a runaway girl, not shoot a sheriff. Shut up, Finn snapped. No, he's right, another man said. Holloway paid us to search, not to commit murder. I'm out. He turned his horse and rode away. 2 more men followed. Finn stared at his remaining companion. Don't you dare. The man hesitated, then spurred his horse and fled. Finn sat alone on his horse, hands still on his gun, face twisted with fury. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Dalton said. You're under arrest. Drop the gun. For a moment, Lena thought Finn would draw anyway. His hand twitched, his jaw clenched. Then he threw the gun down and raised his hands. Holloway's going to destroy all of you. He's welcome to try. Dalton dismounted and cuffed Finn. You'll be my guest until after the hearing, just in case Holloway gets any more ideas. They rode on, leaving Finn cursing behind them. By the time they reached Lincoln, the courthouse was already packed. Word had spread fast. The case against Benjamin Holloway was the biggest scandal the state had seen in decades. Lena walked through the crowd with her head high, the veil pulled back now. Let them see her face. Let them see she wasn't hiding. Inside, Holloway was already seated with his team of lawyers. When he saw her, his expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Fear? Rage? She couldn't tell and didn't care. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Judge Harrison, no relation to the doctor, was known for being fair but harsh. His face gave nothing away as he surveyed the packed courtroom. "This is highly irregular," he began. "But given the seriousness of the charges and the potential for witness intimidation, I'm allowing the accelerated timeline. Mr. Morrison, you may present your case." Morrison stood. "Your Honor, we will prove that Benjamin Holloway systematically defrauded multiple estates, murdered at least one woman through prolonged poisoning, and attempted to force his ward into marriage for financial gain. We have documentation, eyewitness testimony, and expert medical opinion." Holloway's lead lawyer shot up. "Objection! These are wild accusations with no credible—" "You'll have your chance to respond," the judge said. "Sit down. Mr. Morrison, call your first witness." "I call Catherine Wells." Catherine took the stand with steady hands and recounted her friendship with Lena's mother, the letter, the suspicious circumstances of her death. "And you kept this letter for 2 years?" Holloway's lawyer asked during cross-examination, his tone dripping with skepticism. "Why didn't you come forward immediately?" "Because I was afraid," Catherine said simply. "Benjamin Holloway is powerful. He has connections. I feared he would destroy me the way he destroyed Lena's mother." "Or perhaps you fabricated this letter recently to help Miss Gray's case?" "The paper is dated. The ink is aged. Any forensic analysis will prove it's authentic." Catherine's voice was strong. "And I'm not the only one who suspected foul play." "I call Dr. Harrison," Morrison announced. The elderly doctor described Lena's mother's symptoms in detail: the progressive weakness, the digestive issues, the strange timing of her decline. "In your medical opinion, were these symptoms consistent with natural illness?" Morrison asked. "No. They were consistent with arsenical poisoning. Slow, deliberate, in doses designed to mimic natural organ failure." The courtroom erupted. "Order!" the judge shouted. "Did you test for poison?" Holloway's lawyer demanded. "I had no authority to order such tests. Mr. Holloway was the guardian and executor. He refused all my requests for additional examinations, insisting his wife simply had a delicate constitution. Convenient excuse now that she's dead and can't confirm or deny." "I kept detailed notes," Dr. Harrison interrupted. "Every visit, every symptom, every request I made that was denied. It's all documented." Morrison entered the doctor's notes into evidence, then called Thomas Fletcher. Thomas's testimony was devastating. He described how Holloway had isolated his daughter, convinced him it was in her best interest to marry her off quickly, then collected a substantial fee for arranging the union. "And your daughter?" Morrison asked gently. "Dead by her own hand at 19, because she couldn't escape the hell Holloway sold her into." By the time Daniel Price finished testifying about his mother's stolen estate, several jurors were openly wiping their eyes. Then Morrison called Lena. She stood, smoothed her dress, and walked to the witness stand. Holloway's eyes burned into her, but she didn't look at him. She looked at the judge. "Miss Gray," Morrison began, "tell the court what happened the night you fled Benjamin Holloway's estate." Lena took a breath and told them everything. The forced engagement, the sale to Frederick Marsh, the discovery of her mother's papers, the realization that Holloway had murdered her mother and was now trying to silence her permanently. "These papers," Morrison said, holding up the ledgers. "Can you authenticate them?" "They're in my mother's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. She kept them hidden in a false bottom in her jewelry box, the same jewelry box Holloway later claimed I stole." "Did you steal it?" How can I steal what belonged to my mother and should rightfully be mine? Morrison smiled. Indeed, your witness. Holloway's lawyer approached like a shark. Miss Gray, isn't it true you've had episodes of hysteria since your mother's death? No. Isn't it true you refuse to accept your guardian's reasonable guidance? Refusing to be sold into marriage isn't unreasonable. It's survival. Isn't it true you ran away with a man you barely knew, lived with him unchaperoned, and are now fabricating these charges to justify your scandalous behavior? Lena leaned forward. I ran away because my guardian was trying to sell me. I accepted help from a stranger because that stranger treated me with more dignity in 5 minutes than Holloway showed me in 2 years. And these charges aren't fabricated. They're documented, corroborated, and true. The only scandal here is that it took this long for someone to stop him. The lawyer's face reddened. No further questions. I have a question, the judge said suddenly. Miss Gray, do you have any evidence directly linking Mr. Holloway to your mother's death beyond circumstantial testimony? Lena's heart sank. This was the weak point. They had suspicions, patterns, medical opinions, but no smoking gun. Not direct evidence, Your Honor, but— Your Honor, a voice called from the back of the courtroom. I have direct evidence. Everyone turned. A woman stood in the doorway, elegant and pale, her hands trembling. Who are you? The judge demanded. Margaret Holloway, Benjamin's wife. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Holloway's face went white. Order! The judge shouted. Mrs. Holloway, approach the bench. Mr. Morrison, do you know this witness? No, Your Honor, but I'd like to hear what she has to say. Margaret walked down the aisle, her eyes never leaving her husband. When she reached the witness stand, she spoke clearly. I've been married to Benjamin for 15 years. I know what he's capable of because I've watched him do it. He poisoned Lena's mother. I have proof. You're lying, Holloway hissed. Am I? Margaret pulled a small vial from her purse. This is arsenic trioxide. I found it in your study 3 years ago, hidden in your desk. I've kept it all this time, waiting for the courage to use it. When I heard about these proceedings, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. That could be anything, Holloway's lawyer protested. Test it, Margaret said, and test the samples Dr. Harrison took from Lena's mother. You'll find they match. Why now? The judge asked. Why come forward now and not when the woman died? Because I was afraid. Because I have children with this man, and I feared he'd hurt them if I spoke. Because I'm a coward. Margaret's voice broke. But I'm also tired of being a coward. And I'm tired of watching him destroy people. Holloway stood, his face twisted with rage. She's unstable. She's been under a doctor's care for nerves. This is a vindictive attempt to— Sit down, Mr. Holloway, the judge said sharply. Mrs. Holloway, are you willing to testify under oath? Yes. Are you aware that if you're lying, you'll face perjury charges? I'm aware, and I'm not lying. My husband is a murderer, a thief, and a monster, and I can prove it. The judge looked at Holloway, then at Morrison, then at the packed courtroom. I'm calling a recess while we examine this new evidence. We'll reconvene in 2 hours. Those 2 hours felt like days. Lena sat in Morrison's office with Jonah, Catherine, and the others, barely able to breathe. Margaret Holloway, Catherine whispered. I never thought she'd have the courage. Courage is funny, Jonah said quietly. Sometimes it takes years to find it. But when you do, it changes everything. When they returned to the courtroom, the judge's face was grim. The vial Mrs. Holloway provided has been tested and confirmed to be arsenic trioxide. Furthermore, Chemical analysis of tissue samples from the late Mrs. Gray show elevated levels of arsenic consistent with prolonged poisoning. He looked at Holloway. "Mr. Holloway, stand up." Holloway stood, his face a mask. "Based on the evidence presented today, I am removing you as guardian of Lena Gray, effective immediately. I am ordering the estate unfrozen and returned to Miss Gray's control. I am referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution on charges of murder, fraud, embezzlement, and abuse of guardianship." He paused. "Sheriff Dalton, take Mr. Holloway into custody." The courtroom erupted. Holloway's lawyers were shouting. Reporters were scrambling. The sheriff was moving forward with handcuffs. And Lena felt the weight of 2 years, no, of her entire life, lift from her shoulders. Holloway turned as the sheriff cuffed him, his eyes finding Lena's. "You've destroyed everything," he said. "No," Lena replied. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone knew it." As they led him away, Margaret approached Lena. "I'm sorry for not doing this sooner, for not protecting you. You did protect me, today, when it mattered most." Lena took her hand. "Thank you. What will you do now?" "Live. Finally, actually live." Outside the courthouse, the crowd had grown. People were cheering, some crying. Thomas Fletcher embraced his remaining family. Daniel Price stood quietly, tears streaming down his face. Morrison appeared at Lena's elbow. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," Lena corrected. "All of us." "What's next for you?" Lena looked at Jonah, who stood a few feet away, giving her space. "I'm going to use my mother's estate exactly the way I said I would. Help other women escape men like Holloway. Fund lawyers for people who can't afford them. Make sure nobody else suffers the way we did." "That's a good legacy," Morrison said. "Your mother would be proud." "I hope so." As the crowd began to disperse, Jonah approached. "Ready to get out of here?" "More than ready." They walked to where the horses were tied. Sarah had sent word earlier that she was holding a room for them at the boarding house. Separate rooms, properly chaperoned, scandal avoided. "Lena," Jonah said as they mounted up, "about what I said at the lodge, about caring for you. I remember. I meant it. But I also know you've been through hell. You've just won your freedom, your future, everything. You don't need me complicating that." Lena pulled her horse close to his. "Do you remember what you asked me? What I wanted when this was over?" "You said you wanted to help other women." "That's part of it. But I also want something else." She met his eyes. "I want someone who sees me as an equal. Someone who doesn't try to control me or save me, but who stands beside me. Someone who helped me fight, not because he wanted to own me, but because he believed I deserved to be free." Jonah's throat worked. "Lena, I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm not asking for promises or declarations. I'm just saying, when you asked what I wanted, you were part of the answer. If you want to be." For a moment, Jonah just looked at her. Then he smiled. Really smiled. The first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "Yeah," he said. "I want to be." They rode back to Cedar Falls together as the sun set, painting the Nebraska sky in shades of gold and crimson. Behind them, the courthouse faded into the distance. Ahead, the future waited, uncertain, unwritten, but entirely theirs to create. Sarah was waiting on the porch of the boarding house when they arrived, and she took one look at their faces and grinned. "So you won." "We won," Lena confirmed. "And what now? You going back to Lincoln to claim your estate?" "Eventually. But first, I'm going to rest. Actually rest, for the first time in years. Good. You've earned it. Sarah looked at Jonah.
And you? Back to route riding?
Jonah glanced at Lena. Maybe. Or maybe I'll stick around Cedar Falls for a while. See what happens. Smart man, Sarah said. Now get inside, both of you. I've made dinner, and you look half-starved. Over the next weeks, Lena worked with Morrison to settle her mother's estate, pursue criminal charges against Holloway, and begin the foundation she'd promised. Margaret Holloway divorced her husband and became Lena's first major ally, donating her own resources to the cause. Frederick Marsh was quietly dropped from all business associations when it became public knowledge that he'd been willing to marry a woman sold to him against her will. His reputation never recovered. Finn and Holloway's other associates either fled the state or found themselves answering to various criminal charges. And Holloway himself stood trial 6 months later, was convicted of murder and fraud, and was sentenced to hang. Lena attended the sentencing, but felt nothing when the judge pronounced the verdict. Holloway had already lost everything that mattered: his reputation, his power, his freedom. The hanging was just an ending to a story that had already concluded. How do you feel? Jonah asked as they left the courthouse that final time. Free, Lena said. Finally, completely free. They returned to Cedar Falls, where Lena had established her foundation's headquarters in a building next to Sarah's boarding house. Women came from across the state, some fleeing abusive guardians, others seeking legal help, still others just needing a safe place to rebuild their lives. And Jonah stayed, not as her protector anymore, but as her partner. They worked side by side, building something new from the ashes of everything that had come before. A year after Holloway's conviction, on a clear autumn day, Jonah asked Lena to marry him. Not because society demanded it, not because anyone expected it, but because they chose it. Are you sure? Lena asked, laughing. You know I'm going to keep running this foundation. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm not going to be a quiet, obedient wife. Good, Jonah said. I don't want a quiet, obedient wife. I want you, exactly as you are. They married in Cedar Falls, with Sarah as witness and half the town in attendance. No fancy ceremony, no excessive celebration, just two people choosing each other freely, completely, without coercion or compromise. And when people asked Lena's story, how she'd escaped, how she'd fought back, how she'd won, she always ended it the same way. I stopped being afraid of what I might lose and started fighting for what I deserved. That's when everything changed. That's when I became free.